I'm feeling like we're going to need some new lighting. However, here I am, Dr. Larry Smith. You don't want to hear it? Here you go. Don't I just have the coolest introduction? It is all about me. It's Black power, Black pride, Black progressivism. It's all those things and a whole lot more shit. But anyway, welcome to the channel. Dr. Larry Speaks Truth. I am Dr. Larry Smith. For those of you who are new, you're going to find out in this video who I am. I am a historian and a history professor. I've been an educator for the last 25 years. I've been a professor for the last 12. My specializations in history is the African American history, the African diasporic history, and of course, the continent of Africa. What makes me different is, I don't know, I just like to talk and I have a lot of opinions, but I usually wrap them up with facts and also a whole lot of common sense and somewhat of some spirituality. All that craziness and mess, I bring that shit here. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in a town called Lafayette, Louisiana. Some of you may hear my accent. It comes in and out. It depends. Especially when I'm around family, the shit just gets a little bit thicker than when I am not around family. But also, I lived time in Georgia. So I usually tell people I was born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana. But Georgia, more specifically, in my opinion, Atlanta raised me. So I consider Atlanta a second home. So all of that I have come to be came from those two places. I was raised devoutly Christian. I started out as a Catholic, Jehovah's Witness later on. You may hear about that at some point on this channel. And let's just say I no longer practice either of those. I consider myself more of a spiritual follower of the example of what Jesus gave us. And that example for me is just an example of love, an example of not judging people, an example of acceptance, and at least trying to understand other people's differences outside of my own. But nevertheless, that's me. Spiritual. So you will get some spiritual gems here. One of the things that I think is very important to talk about as it relates to me is I'm pro-Black and I'm an activist. Yes, I am the founder of the Organization of Black American Unity, and we'll get into more of that as time goes on, but just know I was inspired by Malcolm X's Organization of African American Unity and the Black Panther Party movement. I've been in activism since 2003. What started my, I guess you would say, career, my experience, my engagement with activism was a guy named Kenneth Walker who was killed in Columbus, Georgia, which is where I went to undergrad. He was shot by the police for no reason. Hanging with his friends, a group of Black men in a car, pulled over by the cops because they were automatically suspected of having done something nefarious. And while on the ground, he moved a little bit and the cops shot and killed him. He had a daughter, I think she was like 3 years old at the time, and a wife. He was a fine, upstanding citizen, had a good job at one of the best places to work in Columbus. His friend was a basketball coach at the high school. These were fine, upstanding men. And his life was taken, and really nothing was done about it. The cop's excuse was that he was high on pain medication of some sort, and his abilities to make true judgments were impaired. But nothing happened. And so from that moment on, I participated in a march. That march included Reverend Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton, amongst others. And we marched, and we protested, and we fought. And that was my introduction into activism. Now, mind you, I have been studying activism for a long time. I grew up with parents who thought it was important to teach African American history and important to talk about the civil rights movement and the rights revolution. I like to say that my father and my uncles and the men in my family tend to be a little black supremacists, which means that they have deep-seated issues with white people. My father's no longer with us, and a few of my uncles aren't either, who were of this mindset. But they believed in poorly of white people, and part of it came from their experience in South Louisiana. You know, all their lives dealing with racism that still occurs there to this day. There's a lot of shit going on in Louisiana, from people being enslaved, from people being unjustly killed, imprisoned. The government is just damn near saying they just want to go back to the 1960s. So yeah, Louisiana has a deep-seated issue with racism, and so there is some justification to the white hatred of the men in my family. However, you know, I grew up around that. I grew up learning black history. I grew up knowing who I was. I grew up being told that I was supposed to be proud of the person I am because of what people had gone through before me. I also grew up being told that I had to work 3 times harder just to get into the door. And so I've always been one to overperform. I've always been one to show my ass and do what I need to do to be successful. And it's paid off because it's helped me to meet many people of many different backgrounds, celebrities, politicians, activists, well-known people, business moguls. It's helped me to be in rooms with people like that. It also has helped me to navigate my career, you know, and be able to be a college professor, to be able to be a scholar in the field of African American, African diasporic, and African history. A notable scholar, someone you can literally Google and find information on me, find things I have written or contributed to. But it is definitely my education and my tenacity that I was taught have taken me far. So I would never shade the education that I have earned. And in fact, in a lot of pro-black circles, a lot of them tend to be self-taught. I'm not only self-taught in what I know, I also have been academically taught, and I've also studied in multiple parts of the world this thing we call blackness. And so for me, it's more than just pro-blackness, marching and wearing kente cloth and paraphernalia. It's about a lifestyle of living in this black skin, knowing who the fuck I am and knowing what the fuck this means to the rest of the world. That's literally what this is. So I am not only black, I'm black and I'm proud. And I am beautifully, beautifully black made, and there's nothing wrong with being black and loving that, because we were not supposed to. But anyway, so my degrees, I have a PhD in comparative religious studies, and 5 other degrees. A couple of them in religious science, and the rest of them are in history, and 1 in modern language and culture as well. So I'm a social scientist. I study social phenomenon while looking through the scope of history as well as religion. So there's a many, and I keep saying it's ridiculous. It doesn't make me sound smarter. Yeah, but it's cool to be educated. And I would definitely encourage young people to go and get your educations, because the doors don't open unless you have the credentials to get into the doors. And that's, unfortunately, that's just the way American society works, which I find to be quite fucking odd, because at the same time people are denying the credibility of education right now, these white people are doing the same thing. However, they've been able to skirt through life without necessarily being overeducated, simply because they created a system that benefits them, whether they're educated or not. But so yes, I have multiple degrees. I am a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I have multiple businesses in real estate, businesses in insurance, life and health. I own a clothing company called Creole Clothing Company, where we produce fine clothes like this, where it says "Black Against the World." Go get your paraphernalia. But I've been in business with that since 2020. So that's my kind of my love business. I'm a transaction coordinator for real estate. I have a lot of business, and I have things on the horizon for my people that I am trying to put into place to move us forward, because it's time to move forward. And that is what spurred me to get back into YouTube. What spurred me to get back into YouTube was seeing that my people needed a voice to say the shit that we just can't always say publicly, right? You know, to say the shit that we can't say on some other platforms. I have been banned from TikTok 3 times. The account I have there is my 4th account. And I had some pretty significant numbers as it relates to family members, and I call my followers family members. But TikTok doesn't like accurate history. TikTok doesn't like you to talk about Black plight. TikTok doesn't like you to talk about revolution and rights and things that are important to everybody, but more importantly to the Black community. TikTok has a definite bias towards Black content creators. And if they say otherwise, the evidence is there for itself. So yeah, I am an entrepreneur. I am an educator. I'm a historian. I love history. I'm an activist. I've been out there on the streets. Like I said, I am the founder of the Organization of Black American Unity, because I believe that in order for us to be able to get beyond not just the moment we in, but the position we have been in for centuries, is for us to finally unify. And I believe personally that there's no time quite like now that we've had in U.S. history. I mean, you go back to our history, we were enslaved, our ancestors were enslaved at some point. They weren't able to unify and revolutionize and fight against the power. And all throughout Jim Crow and the Civil Rights Movement, they were gathering, they were promoting and getting momentum, but at the same time, they were not able to do what I believe we can do today, which is unify and somewhat separate. What does that make me a separatist? I call myself a partial separatist. I realize that we are so engrossed into American whatever that we would literally have to take intentional moves, intentional steps to remove ourselves from this whatever, right? But there are things we can do to separate ourselves now in certain things. And of course, I'll talk about some of it here, but I don't believe in putting my gems out for my community. I believe that all the work that we need to do for our community should be done in the grapevine. And if you get that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm an activist. And I'm a queer boy, which makes me a little different than some of the other pro-Black people you see. I am not Dr. Umar. I got respect for him, but I consider him the broken clock. He's right at least 2 times a day, right? And some of the others, I've literally been told to my face, you know, that because I'm queer, you could never be a leader in this Black movement. Ooh, sorry, y'all. You could never be a leader in this Black movement. And I'm thinking in my head, do you realize just how many queer people were part of the Civil Rights Movement? Do you realize just how many people were part of the movements that were going on in the 1920s and 30s? Do you realize how many queer enslaved people were promoting revolution and escaping? Queer people have always been around since forever. So to deny the fact that we have a place in the Black movement, in the Black progress and power movement, is just fucking ridiculous. And it's usually people who don't really understand how white supremacy works. Because that notion of emasculating queer men is directly correlated with white supremacy. Because white supremacy doesn't want to break the rules. White supremacy has an order to life that it believes should be, but anything else falls outside of that order to life. Well, I fall outside of that order to life, and I'm fucking fine with it. But I am going to fucking fight for my people. It is what it is. I am a student of Huey P. Newton. I am a student of Malcolm X. I am a student of James Baldwin, Toni Morrison. Why in the fuck wouldn't I fight for my folks? It just makes sense. So yeah, so I'm all of those things, and hopefully I can be more in life as I develop and mature as an adult. I'm well over 40, but I still feel like I'm learning life and I'm understanding the world around me. And I think that that's never going to change. I'm going to be 80 something years old, still trying to be inquisitive about this thing we call life. Because life, when you get stagnant in what you know, you die. The more you continue to know, the more you continue to grow and thrive, in my opinion. So I just wanted to get on with this video so that you know who the fuck you're dealing with. You with Dr. Larry. I'm going to speak my unfiltered truth about a myriad of subjects. I'm interested in a lot of shit. I'm interested in politics. I'm interested, obviously, in history and education and sociology. I'm interested in theology and spirituality. I'm interested in popular culture. My favorite fucking show is The Real Housewives of Atlanta. So I may even do a few, reviews of episodes of The Real Housewives of Atlanta or some other reality show. I love talking about relationships and connections and business and day trading. I mean, if you look at the books behind me, if you can read the titles, there are a myriad of different things that I am interested in, that I have my hands in. And that some of the things I've gotten to be pretty successful at, and I would like to share. Because it's time to move forward. We can talk about the past to understand where we were and to understand how we got to where we are. But we should never stay stagnant where we are. We should always be looking towards the future. So that's Dr. Larry. If you want to know more about me, you can follow me on all my social medias. You can also Google some shit. You might find my fucking mugshot. We'll talk about those things. But the point is, I'm here. YouTube, welcome to my channel. Hopefully you enjoy your place here. I can make you laugh. I can make you think. I can make you upset. Whatever fucking emotion you need to move forward and to grow, hopefully I can supply those things. And if you're listening on Spotify, what up? So anyway, I'm out. It's Dr. Larry, and you enjoy the fucking day you have.